The Common Read is sponsored by the English Department, the Southeastern Writing Center, and the Student Government Association, and I'm David Hanson, head of the English Department. Special welcome to our Common Read author, Tracy K. Smith. Who is here to talk with you about our Common Read text, Life on Mars. We begin Common Read Day always with you, the students, because you're the reason why we're able to bring such gifted and nationally recognized writers to Southeastern, because you have a reputation for responding with such enthusiasm and such intelligence to the Common Read text. Let me remind you of the upcoming events here again in Vonnie Borden throughout the day. At 11 o'clock, we'll have a Q&A with Tracy Smith about the Common Read text. And then this evening, 6:30, Tracy will give a reading and a Q&A, and there'll be a reception in the lobby and a book signing afterwards. I want to extend a special welcome to our dual enrollment classes who are able to join us, whether by live stream or here in the auditorium. I believe we've got North Lake Christian, Dutchtown, Franklinton, Ponchatoula, Fosstown Academy, Charles Catholic, Binsford, and Bowling Green. Did I miss anybody? Thanks also to the Southeastern TV channel who's taping the events for us. There are sign-up sheets in the lobby after the presentation. And I'm now going to introduce our dual enrollment coordinator, Heather Botsford, who will introduce our student presentations. And after the presentations, Tracy Smith will comment on what you've brought for her. Heather.
Thank you and welcome to the student presentations. Our first performance is going to be on stage here. We have the David Bowie Woodwind Quintet by Dutchtown High School students. That was beautiful. Thank you, guys. Can I introduce you? We have Georgia Clement on bassoon. Oh, sorry. Blaine Dudson, Matthew Meyer, Lauren Semino, and Alan Babin. Thank you, guys. There's a step over here. Okay, next we're going to have a poem read by Kelly Hunter. The title is It's Dangerous to Be a Dreamer.
Flames flickering from ghost of tomorrow, bringing burdens bickering for attention. Seeing someone somberly in a corner, keep kicking kindly at their hearts like little lighters with a spark from bringing such kind luck. How hollow horses of bones do march forward from fears of dark, seeking something sobering ahead, promptly pleading, please don't dare descend. Backwards breaking bones of past, morbidly making more dead men fast. Silent screams somewhere near as ashes attain the grip of steel. Women will weep and seek protection. Men may make fatal proclamations, wielding wounded words as their only weapon. Deadly dreams deem their place on earth, making men merely fixated. Things taking tarnished paths, from feeble fingers our dreams will pass. Down deep discreet holes they lay their rest, world wondering widely what might have been if only allowing dreams to win.
Okay, next we have an essay by Blair Boss. It's entitled One Small Step for Man. Come on up, Blair.
Life on Mars is a collection of literature by one brilliant author, enticed by all the commotion of the universe. Tracy K. Smith's poem, My God is Full of Stars, is a mysterious apprehension of space, as well as a tribute to her late father. Throughout her writing, Smith examines space to reveal her interpretations of what it may hold. In order to understand her discernment of the universe, personal, cultural, and scientific references are examined. With the focus being on the author and her fascination of the universe, it is evident that she learned this through a role model. Even as a young child, Smith demonstrates her love for space, which she acquired from her father, and even after his passing, she still clings to it. She begins to portray her father at the Hubble telescope. The first few pictures came back blurred, and I felt ashamed for the cheerful engineers, my father and his tribe. The second time, the optics jibed, and we saw the edge of all there is. Her father would constantly be looking through a telescope and hoped to discover the extraordinary. In an incessant state of bliss, he was hopeful to discover something beyond this world. This view of her father portrays the mark that he left on his young daughter and how space is anything but insipid. In an interview, Smith retells of her father's work. I also have a private attachment to the Hubble because it was part of my father's daily life for a number of years. She goes on to explain that I think of it as an extension of him pertaining to the cheerful engineers, my father and his tribe. Smith's inheritable fascination for space is a connection to her deceased father and is a driving force to fully understand what space holds. This turn of passage suggests that she misses her father and his daily routine at the Hubble telescope. Thus, her perception of the universe can be traced back to these very personal references, which she included through her work. Although her father passed a decade ago, it is obvious that he was a major source of inspiration throughout her writing. After reviewing Smith's work, her longing for her father is evident in this particular poem. So that I might now be sitting beside my father as he raises a lit match to a bowl of his pipe. This use of figurative language, by repeatedly referring to her father, advocating the idea of him being significant throughout the poem. She wishes to be with him again, even if it's just over him smoking. She feels uneased by the fact that there may be something else out there in the universe she doesn't understand, to which her father would normally comfort her. Remembering that secure feeling, she would curl up next to him, and although, as she contemplates the universe around her, she cannot make sense of it, Moreover, she believes someone else may be in the same situation as she is. This very intimate view of Smith illustrates her obsession with knowing what is beyond Earth. As Smith switches the focal point from her film to Stanley Kubrick's The Space Odyssey, she begins to vividly portray the interstellar. It is obvious that beyond all other topics of literature, she holds a connection to space film. Kubrick's cinema depicts the astonishment felt by Smith. When Dave is whisked into the center of space, which unfurls in aurora or orgasmic light, like a jungled orchard, paint and water, and then gazed wafting out and off. And before finally, the night tide, luminescent and vague, swirls in and on and on. The energetic and eloquent imagery Smith uses to represent space captivates her attraction towards it. In trying to endeavor space travel, the character Dave is overwhelmed by how many stars there are in the universe and how beautiful it is. There are many aspects of space humans still haven't unfolded yet, although, once being discovered, Smith foretells of the beauty of it. In other words, Kubrick films preserves how many established themes such as space travel and the existence of interstellar aliens. In this opening view, Kubrick's 2001 motion picture describes humans as being amazed by the beyond, which the poet believes other beings are as well. It brings us one step closer to discovering the endlessness of the universe. The portrayal of this film is cohesive with Smith's endearment to bring awareness of what is all around Earth. The central focus of Smith's poem is not only how humans wonder what space holds, but who else may be asking the very same question. Even with the advancements in leading-edge research, space remains one of the world's greatest mysteries. After imagining outer space and foretelling of the beings out there, Smith goes on to have an epiphany. Perhaps the greatest error is believing that we are alone. In a breakthrough moment, the poet explicitly alludes to how humans may have a self-absorbed mindset. The diction within this line, specifically the word error, commends the notion that the modern perception of space is false. Through this, she construes that we don't want to understand extraterrestrial beings because the human mind cannot comprehend them. This realization gives a glimpse of space's boundaries and how we may not be the only life within it. This logical and more diagnostic parameter the writer takes demonstrates our father's scientific mindset as well as the level of understanding humans have about the universe. Modern scientists have exploited with new innovations, research, and discoveries. Even with the advancements in technology, humans could still be far behind compared to other beings. With our attention being directly on discovering what is in space, Smith seems to allude to other life forms searching for us. So brutal and alive, it seems to comprehend us back. A life beyond ours is long awaiting, it may even be expecting us too. The human mind is bewildered in a perpetual state and wondering if there is anything really else out there beyond Earth. Several studies suggest that surveys in the general public in the West have reported that up to 50% of people believe that extraterrestrial life exists. As additional research is being conducted, more and more people are choosing to believe that Earth is not the only source of life. This ending view of the poem leaves the reader in an inquiring mood, with Smith's intention to make more people aware of space. The analysis of space seems nearly impossible, however, the poet's intention is to share her discernment with the public. Smith's objective is to expose space's mysteries and to bring more awareness that humans may not be alone in the universe. She utilizes personal, cultural, and scientific references to endeavor this hope. It was a tragedy losing her father, but it has transposed her view of the universe as thriving with life compared to being empty and alone. My God, It's Full of Stars is a perplexing and alluring claim to her father's work and opens a door to an unfamiliar and exciting future.
Okay, next we have a presentation by Grace Rishu.
Hello, my name is Grace Rishu, and this presentation will be my theme interpretation of Tracy K. Smith's poem, Sci-Fi. These pictures represent to me the overall message of the poem. As you can see, these pictures right there are humans interacting with one another and embracing each other compassionately. However, now that technology has completely consumed most of us, humans are isolated and they are only concerned with self-gratification. This PowerPoint will prove the theme through tone, diction, and imagery. The quote, "The oldest among us will recognize that glow," describes a liveliness that only people from the past generations will remember because they remember a world that was not consumed with technology, but focused rather on companionship and passion. This quote reflects that the narrator is nostalgic and realistic. She is dissatisfied and she is skeptical if the future will be a better place for humanity. The diction choice is important within the quote. Women will still be women, but the distinction will be empty. Empty is a unique choice of wording because although people will be the same and have equality, they will not have anything that will make them special or individuals. In addition, the quote, "Eons from even our own moon will drift in the haze of space, which will be once and for all scrutable and safe." With emphasis on the words drift and haze, it shows that people will be detached from reality because of technology. Imagery allows the reader to actually visualize the message of the poem. For example, the quote with its history with its hard spines and dog-eared corners will be replaced with nuance, just like the dinosaurs gave way, allows the reader to actually see a history book marked off by important details. But over time, these details will be forgotten and replaced with generalizations. In addition, the extinction of the dinosaurs alludes to the fact that powerful creatures of each era will eventually die. Therefore, humans need to remember what makes them special. Also, sex having outlived every threat, which will gratify only the mind, which is where it will exist, proves that although most external dangers will be gone, the danger is the loss of human interactions, and people will only want self-gratification. Lastly, these points prove the theme that although people believe that the future will contain more opportunities due to new advancements in technology, humanity will lose its meaning and will not have any passion if it stops caring for one another. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next I'd like to invite Jana Green to stage to read her poem.
Good morning, everyone, and Poet of Honor, Mrs. Smith. Life on Mars is an exhilarating poetry collection that takes readers into a journey of space to experience life on Mars. Each work is a work of beauty, power, tenderness, and intensity. While reading Life on Mars, I learned more about topics I am unfamiliar with, such as astronomy, the death of a father, and David Bowie. But Smiths in which the dead send postcards to their assailants from America's most celebrated landmarks confronted me with a topic I think we are all very familiar with, hate crimes within our society. In the poem, victims of fatal hate crimes from 2009 write postcards to their respective murderers. Presumably, one assumes the dead will use the letters to curse or offer forgiveness to their assailants. Instead, all of the letters are brief, hopeful, and poetically calm. Each of the victims are at peace with their surroundings, wherever they are in the mystic void. Smith allows the victims to be individuals again, with real hopes, passions, thoughts, and dreams, and not only another victim of another senseless hate crime plaguing America. Significantly, there has been an increase in racially motivated crimes by police and hate groups targeted towards African Americans. Being judged, hated, and persecuted for our skin color is a sad reality for many African Americans, including myself, across America. Tracy K. Smith's In Which the Dead Send Postcards to Their Assailants from America's Most Celebrated Landmarks gave me the inspiration and courage to give a voice to some of the fallen African American victims of hate crimes as a way to celebrate the innocent individuals behind the tragedy. I present my piece, Blackmail, from famous African American landmarks. Dear George, how are you? I just celebrated a birthday a few weeks ago. To some, I am eternally 17 years old, but I like to believe I am evolving. My parents and I are at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in DC today. The statue's majesty is breathtaking. May we always follow Dr. King's teaching and stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Sincerely, Trayvon. Hi, Timothy. My family and I visited the 16th Street Baptist Church today in Birmingham. Above the front door of the sanctuary is the stained glass Welsh window. In it, Black Christ uses his right arm to push away hatred and injustice, while the left arm is extended to offer forgiveness. I wish the 4 little girls had the chance to see it, to grow into women, to live. Forgiveness is the only cure for a wound that deep, don't you think? Love, Tamir. Dear Howie and Blaine, as a 6-foot man, I know I am large, but the African American Smithsonian Museum made me feel even larger, more significant, as if I am a puny yet powerful piece of a race of warriors. I saw names I have never seen that are heroes for the Black race. I think people are placing my name with these unsung pioneers. Who would have thought C.D. Man would be amongst the heroes? It is definitely a mystery, but I think the mysteries of life make it the most beautiful. Best regards, Alton. Hello, Geronimo. Are you on Facebook? I can't seem to find you. I wish I could have video streamed the entire time I was at the International Civil Rights Museum in Greensboro. Diamond used to always record all of our outings together. I must admit, though, without social media and a body, I am free. I am free to explore and wander wherever I please. I breathe carpe diem and wonder where I will end up. Only God knows. Yours, Philando. P.S. We have raised nearly $205,000 with Philando Feeds the Children. My students know Mr. Phil is always there. To Dylan Roof. We are happy. Each of us are ecstatic to be back in our church. Emmanuel African Methodist Church is our home, the center of our universe. God greets us every morning with a hug and a smile. We are planning Ethel a birthday party. She will be 71. Susie will sing. Her voice is the work of angels. We don't have everything we need, but we have each other forever. We only knew you for a brief time, but we hope Bible study was a blessing to you. Matthew 25:40 says, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of my brethren, you did it for me. God brought you through our doors, and you brought us to the stars. With love, the Charleston 9. Dear person threatened by my skin, my black skin is not a battle call. Your gun holds bullets and hatred, not my melanin. Does it offend you? Well, I am not sorry. Your great-great-great-great-grandfather is to blame for bringing my ancestors over to America in 1619, not me. I have been to each of these places the victims write from, and I share in the reverie of their immortal lives. Their physical voice has been taken away, so they write. Our voice is our own personal landmark, and you have no right to take it away. You cannot silence a transcendental voice. Our voice will permeate hatred and radiate resilience until the end of time. Signed, Jana. Thank you.
That's great. Next, we'll have an essay read by Victoria Roquin, Safe and Lost. Tracy K. Smith's third book, titled Life on Mars, is a mixture of sci-fi, reality, and all the questions often thought of but rarely asked. It could just as accurately be titled Life. Her work reaches out to the parts of the human soul which crave knowledge and adventure. It speaks to those who lament that the West is settled and Everest has been summited 4,000 times. Smith thoughtfully combines traditional views of the future with her own vivid imagination. While doing so, she exposes why it is crucial to hold true to essential values in order to prevent a future without purpose. Sci-fi and the Museum of Obsolescence reveal a universe which is understood and safe, but has lost all of its humanity and beauty. In sci-fi, readers are first introduced to the future through Smith's description of studying the past and reaching understanding. Sci-fi was written during Smith's Duende era, the book prior to Life on Mars, but it didn't fit into her earlier works. In an interview with Claire Schwartz of the Iowa Review, Smith expounds on what led her to writing science fiction. She states, "Another thing that science fiction does is to ask, what are we doing right now, and what kind of a future is that going to lead to? I wanted to write dystopic poems as a way of thinking about America and the future that America is laying the tracks for." So poems like The Museum of Obsolescence are really, as I see them, poems about America. In asking these questions and tilting her literary lenses, Smith found her voice in the world of science fiction. She opened the door to asking questions about where humanity could be headed, and in particular, where America could be headed. While Smith's works largely focus on the future, her poem Sci-Fi starts with an analysis of the consequences of dwelling on the past. Smith writes, "There will be no edges but curves, clean lines pointing only forward. History, with its hard spine and dog-eared corners, will be replaced with nuance, just as the dinosaurs gave way to mounds and mounds of ice. In the future, the past has no distinct differences. History has served its purpose. Future historians have researched and explored every aspect of the past, and it has impacted the future they are heading into." It's easy to agree with the popular coinage by Harvard philosophy professor George Santayana: "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." However, recent studies from the Owen Graduate School of Management at Vanderbilt University have discovered a new view on the topic. In a study led by Professor Kelly Halls, research found that searching through the past can negatively affect behavior, depending on the ease of recall, even when past examples are positive. This study shows by focusing on the past, humans aren't necessarily condemned to repeat it, but they may change the future for the worse because of this focus. In Smith's portrayal of the future, historians have reached full knowledge of the past, and they thought they understood every potential aspect of the future. Because they were so keen on avoiding past mistakes, the future was negatively impacted and veered into unexplored waters. Essentially, they focused so much on the rearview mirror, they caused a crash by not looking ahead. While the beginning of sci-fi focuses on gleaning from the past, in the Museum of Obsolescence, Smith extends her view of the future and presents what we have lost, in addition to exploring what we might have been saved from. Things which used to be important, like oil and money, have been reduced to features on dusty shelves. However, the most notable of the occupants of the museum is not found behind glass walls. It's found in its temporary displays and in an elderly man. Smith writes, "Where a living man sits on display, ask and he'll describe the old beliefs. If you laugh, he'll lower his head and sigh. When he dies, they'll replace him with a video looping on ad infinitum. The man tells of the ways of old to anyone who will stop and listen, but he has become used to the laughter his tales will bring. Laughter is his new normal." In contrast to the historians of sci-fi, whose focus on past historical events negatively impacted the future, the man tells of old beliefs. The poems reveal humankind has lost this belief, along with distinct features of being human, such as love. Lack of disagreements and reasons for war has made the future safe, but the additional loss of beliefs resulted in humanity drifting through space without rhyme or reason. In addition to the living man, the temporary displays featured in the museum give further insight on what has been removed from society in order to gain the title of safe. Smith writes, "Special installations come and go. Love was up for a season, followed by illness. Concepts difficult to grasp. Illness being nearly eradicated is certainly a perk, but if this boon comes at the price of love, is it worth it? Humanity may have escaped from a plague of historical issues, but the safety net it landed in has enslaved it. While both poems analyze safety and how the future achieved it, in the Museum of Obsolescence, Smith speaks of the future needing to be saved, which is not mentioned in sci-fi. Smith writes, "So much we once coveted, so much that would have saved us, but lived instead in its own quick span, returning to uselessness with the mute acquiescence of shed skin." Smith implies a few of the things that must have been able to save humanity were in the museum, such as love and belief. But from what are the humans of the future being saved? And why do they need saving? In Smith's earlier poem, Sci-Fi, she establishes the future as once and for all, scrutable and safe. Humanity was so anxious to board their metal capsules and reach the stars, they forgot to zip up their suitcases on the way out the doors. As a result, love, belief, and beauty fell out and were lost somewhere in space. People have always wondered if aliens exist, but due to losing everything that made them human, the people of the future have essentially become the aliens we always wondered about. While this perspective of the future is rather bleak, Smith also reveals there is still hope. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines obsolescence as the process of becoming obsolete or the condition of being nearly obsolete. In her choice of using the word obsolescence in the poem's title, Smith reveals that none of the parts of being truly human are completely obsolete. They are just nearly so. Joy, passion, purpose, sense of adventure, and love of life still have a chance at returning, just like how nearly extinct species have a chance at returning when cared for properly. The peregrine falcon is a prime example of a species being saved from near extinction and provides an excellent example for love and belief being brought back in the future. In an interview with Minnesota Daily, passionate falconer Patrick Reading shared about his role in bringing peregrine falcons back from the brink of extinction. Reading stated, "People create the problem, and people can fix the problem, but they got to decide that they want to fix it first." Love may be in the process of becoming extinct, but just like the falcons, it can be saved when the people of the future make a decision to fix the problem. When humanity prioritizes the human experience, love and belief, true joy and happiness can emerge from the dust of the museum and be primary features in life once again. The poems reveal a safe and understood future and show the high price paid for that safety, humanity and beauty. Because future humans focused on eradicating the possibility of repeating the mistakes from the past, the people of the future forgot to hold on to the things which makes humans human. Yes, there were many, many mistakes in the past, but a society which traded love for safety, belief for knowledge, and beauty for conformity has traded in everything which makes it human. Smith's writing may reveal a grim future, but they are simultaneously full of hope. The side of humanity that still dances and covets, the side which still feels, can find love again. And when they do, humanity will find itself not just among the stars, but truly living among the stars. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have a poem by Jamil Carter.
Good morning. My name is Jamie L. Carter. That's fine. And I will be reading two poems. The first is titled It, aka The Black, and it draws inspiration from Mrs. Smith's poem, Don't You Wonder Sometimes, with the line, thinking one day I'll touch the world with bare hands, even if it burns. It, aka The Black. Even if it burns, like great-grandmother's house from the walls, like a buttered sting, let it spread, like the child's first prick from the cotton, where the bloodline runs to the water, like the spirituals bouncing from breath to breath. And when a broken star dies, buried with no name, they are the dark matter, the space between my descendants of your descendants, the granular black dust that goes unacknowledged but remains our foundation. Even if it cries like a newborn, like someone missing another, flesh gone but spirit felt, its tears are reminders of unrequited debt to it from love, from pain, from they, from self, that never ceases to exist. Don't cry with it. Understand historical strife left it here, on an uninhabited doorstep with a note that read, worth 3/5. But don't worry if it cries, that's an everyday thing. Worry if it lies, songless, psalmless, shepherdless, because its cries are stepping stools for its lives. Even if it falls, like broken, unreplaceable china, like a baby bird wingless from the mother's nest, like the dream you're supposed to have, let it matter. Like the lamb's appearance for the child, like the unforgivable hover from the spirit that won't let go. A feeling of attachment for a cry you can't explain. And when it falls, who's left to answer? Those hidden in the trees responsible for the slow pull of the ground beneath their feet, or those innately born to answer the call of responsibility because of the sun's overzealous staring at their kind. But all are left to reach to as if reaching for a promise, because even when it falls, it never falls at all. Even if it questions you, even if it confuses, the burns, cries, falls are the same from it to you, a long line of lineage drawn across the field, connected by the blood, rebirthed by the stars, protected by the spiritual. One, it, them, us, seedlings under the stars, there's beauty in its ashes, undefinable beauty that is the dark matter. My second poem is titled When the Heavenly Palace Falls, and this draws inspiration from the Chinese space station Tiangong-1, also known as the Heavenly Palace, which is expected to crash into Earth on April 1st. When the Heavenly Palace falls, will I get caught in the web of wreckage, getting baptized by the history I never knew existed? Remembering I wanted to touch the world with bare hands, but let time slip into the day like a careless mother. When the Heavenly Palace crosses through the blue halo, will it carry the prayers from Grandma's hands, consigned to oblivion, because we live like light, but believe at the speed of a turtle's race to the edge of something good? When the Heavenly Palace breaks through the auburn plain of elemental debate, will we cherish the serenity gained from knowing the difference? Will we thank God for the treasures before their time reached the end? Will we recite boiled recipes and past secrets from family bonfires and New Orleans nights? Or will we rage from the crimson machine screaming, why God, why now? Where looks turn the fellow man to a grain of salt. When it crashes on what we claimed as ours, where will we be? Who will we look to when machine and ground become one? And when the dust is blown away, there will be the tree, again, parting the chaos and the peace with opening doors to a new wonder, but an old promise, a promise from the beginning, manifested in the codes before the launch, before the sins. Can't you see it? It, the paradise that was always waiting for us, the unprepared. Tell me, isn't it beautiful when the Heavenly Palace falls? Thank you.
Okay, next we have an essay by Madeline.
In Life on Mars, Tracy K. Smith the current poet laureate of the United States, used the futuristic motif combined with personal recollections and sci-fi culture references to create a collection of existential poetry based on life after Earth. The author alludes to themes of the future generation's negligence toward history and humankind's overall numbness in respect to the increasingly tumultuous sociological climate. Through her poems, Sci-Fi and the Museum of Obsolescence, Smith provides the reader with compelling evidence that the continuation of technological advancement poses a great threat to society's sensitivity and will ultimately hinder mankind's ability to expand and grow as a community. Tracy K. Smith conceptualizes the prospective dangers that lie within comprehensive scientific expansion and safety in Sci-Fi, one of the initial poems featured in Life on Mars. Sci-Fi paints the picture of an austere and desolate future, characterized by humans becoming fully liberated from all danger and discomfort, yet confined by the very measures that were intended to extricate them. The closing stanza of the poem provides several lines that evoke the feeling of an eerie loneliness, while leaving the reader with the disconcerting perception of what the future might hold. Weightless, unhinged, eons from even our own moon will drift in the haze of space, which will be, once and for all, scrutable and safe. If innovations in safety and science continue to evolve at their current rate, a direct result of their growth is that humans will become detached from the qualities that keep them grounded. As a whole, society will lose all sense of spontaneity and be left simply drifting through life without the opportunity to grow and learn from mistakes and negative outcomes. Smith elaborates on the topic of dehumanization presented heavily throughout her work in a Q&A about her space-related works. The interviewer asked Smith why she imagined such a dark future for humans, especially in sci-fi. The Life on Mars poet expanded on her stringent idea of the future, replying, "My poem Sci-Fi presents a sanitized version of the vision of the future, an unsettling utopia in which we have outlived every threat, but where much of what we thrive on as humans has been deemed unnecessary. After all imminent dangers have been abolished, mankind will find itself restricted and held back due to lack of empathy. The qualities of imperfection and uncertainty lend themselves to create a forgiving and compassionate society. Society's humanity will be lost, and their ability to grow and expand will be inhibited should the aforementioned qualities be removed from culture." Smith continues to write on the idea of mankind becoming desensitized in the Museum of Obsolescence. The poem depicts a museum set in the future that showcases artifacts from the old planet, Earth. The physical objects featured are things that are currently considered useful and necessary, but in the future, they are distinguished as arbitrary and antiquated. The poet includes a psychological approach to the matter. Special installations come and go. Love was up for a season, followed by illness, concepts difficult to grasp. By reducing emotional connections and common events such as illness to being nothing more than exhibits for observation rather than experience, the author suggests that humans are on the path to becoming completely void of all ability to feel pain and sympathy. After being fully protected from ever experiencing pain, humans will be unable to feel the joy and relief that often precedes, accompanies, or follows painful interactions. Emotions and the ability to feel pain contribute to an individual's humanity. Humans will be deprived from some of the essential psychological qualities which serve to distinguish them from being an unforgiving and heartless species, should their ability to have emotional experiences be taken away. On the subject of technology's growth inhibiting humans' capacity to grow in terms of their humanity, Smith illustrates the accrual of damage towards entities of culture that aid in people's natural instinct to empathize. She speaks of how relevant and important literature is, specifically in the matter of society retaining its humanity. She says, "I think that every poem invites the reader to depart from the fixed conditions of his or her life and follow along beside the speaker for a while. I think this is fundamentally what appeals to us about literature in general, though we don't always think about what we are doing as an exercise in empathy." Smith argues that certain elements of enlightenment in our culture, particularly literature, serve the purpose of softening individuals' hearts and allowing them to experience a multitude of emotions in a safe environment removed from reality. She reminds the readers that while they partake in the activity of building compassion daily, it often goes unnoticed and consequently unappreciated. In the Museum of Obsolescence, Smith envisions that among the plethora of archaic objects featured in the museum, such as money and oil, books will also be included in the display. Pots of honey pilfered from a tomb, books recounting the wars, maps of fizzled stars. As technology continues to advance, it will become increasingly easy to lose sight of the past and forget elements ingrained in culture that currently lend themselves to the betterment of humanity through enrichment. Moreover, society's growing lack of empathy in combination with the acceleration of technological advancement will inevitably lead to mankind's forfeiture of community. If scientific advancements prove successful and all negativities removed from humans' lives, they would be left with a cold and sterile existence, void of companionship. Community itself is defined by forms of neighborly relations built off of common ground characteristics that produce an empathetic bond. Community often entails a warm sense of camaraderie and benefits society by providing connections that prevent individuals from leading a life of emotional desolation while allowing them to have a cause greater than themselves to care about. Lack of community among humans will bring about the end of several key characteristics to the continuation in overall growth and expansion. One characteristic in particular, history and general acknowledgement of the past, is surely to be lost should mankind's sense of communal interaction cease to exist. Writer Colleen J. McElroy explains the process of oral tradition along with the magnitude of its outreach. Someone tells a story, which is told and retold, and it ripples away from the first storyteller. It expands while retaining its original shape. Storytelling links one generation to the next. Taken separately, the stories may not seem like much, but collectively they form the grand spiral of history. Without community and oral tradition, generations will become even further disconnected and separated from each other. Future generations will be left with no record of their ancestry, and this will only add to the already desolate and disconnected habitat mankind will be living in. Returning to one of the initial poems in Life on Mars, sci-fi provides a stanza which adds reassurance to the likelihood of this argument. History, with its hard spine and dog-eared corners, will be replaced with nuance. While society and technology continue to grow, they slowly become disconnected from the stories of the past, which are replaced with new and marvelous achievements. In addition to preserving the richness of history, community gives individuals the opportunity to be collectively brilliant. Many great innovations in science and technology are not made by a single person, but rather, they're built off of inspiration from predecessors. In some cases, such as Smith's father, who worked in a group, people can band together to create a magnificent revolution that otherwise would have been impossible. Smith's father was not single-handedly responsible for the success or mishaps of the Hubble telescope. Instead, he worked with others in order for them to create a revolutionary asset for future space travel and exploration. Smith references this little community in My God is Full of Stars by referring to the workers as my father and his tribe. Without people like Smith's father, who are willing to work cooperatively with the community for the betterment of enlightenment, many discoveries would never have come to fruition, and many possibilities will be infeasible. Moreover, the disintegration of community ultimately will lead to the degradation of enlightenment and impede further societal and scientific expansion. While in some sense, Tracy K. Smith's Life on Mars depicts a promising future for scientific progression, it also essentially promises the death of mankind's humanity and the corresponding qualities such as empathy, community, and history. These qualities work hand in hand. Without even one, an individual is incapable of experiencing their fullest potential in terms of quality of life. The evidence provided throughout Life on Mars, especially in sci-fi and the Museum of Obsolescence, proves the point that complete technological advancement will result in the overall destruction of society's humanity. Thank you.
Our final presentation is by Mitchell Dixon. He's created a song, Dark Matter.
So this song I made and recorded on just my phone and a pair of headphones, and it's inspired from Tracy K. Smith's poem, Life on Mars. And in a few sections of the piece, she talks about dark matter as a mysterious force and a theory. So this song is my representation on what I think dark matter is.
Correction, I can't even go to school without need of protection. Kids wander in the clouds as they watch the stars, while the Starman is asking, is there life on Mars? Cause they're young and innocent and they don't know. To them, all this craziness is just a joke, but I feel this bond filling up inside of me. It keeps me fighting, so get up and follow me. It's the space between us holding everyone together, while the evil drowns and we'll be floating like a feather. Some people look for escape and try to find an door, yet are left unmovable with feet stuck to the floor. What's this power that controls us that we can't see? Hey, I couldn't tell you, this is new to me. Dark matter, the force behind it all, this thing won't shatter. Dark matter, the force behind it all that we all gather is. Dark matter, the force behind it all, this thing won't shatter. Dark matter, the force behind it all that we all gather is. Dark matter, dark matter, dark matter, dark matter. Dark matter, dark matter, dark matter, dark matter. There's tons of good and lots of life, but you can't spell live without evil, right? There's gotta be balance, just let's take it slow, cause there's a lot to learn, so stop. Now go, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, just to name a few. There are so many planets that we can escape to, but you ever wonder why there's no life on Mars? Cause the answer to our problems just aren't that far. Though as human beings, we like to keep things concealed, with our heart as a sword and our mind as a shield. But don't wait for failure, then start feeling sorry. Not everyone can be fought as a one-man army, so rise up with the citizens as they begin to sing, along with the elegies it continues to ring, to respect the warriors who put their lives on the line, so that parents can tell the kids that everything will be fine. Yeah, people out there want to escape from Earth's insanity, when the solution issue is God, friends, or family. It's the invisible bond between space that keeps us blessing, though it's so mysterious that it keeps us all guessing. Dark matter, the force behind it all, this thing won't shatter. Dark matter, the force behind it all that we all gather is. Dark matter, the force behind it all, this thing won't shatter. Dark matter, the force behind it all that we all gather is. Dark matter, dark matter, dark matter, dark matter. Dark matter, dark matter, dark matter, dark matter. What is dark matter? Well, it's a theory, a belief, a term we use to name something that we don't understand. But just because we don't understand it doesn't mean we don't believe in it. Besides, aren't lives run on belief and hope anyways?
And now, welcome, please, Tracy K. Smith.
Wow. I am so moved and just so grateful for the attention and the insight that you've brought to reading and responding to my work. So I want to thank you. I applaud you again. It means a lot that, you know, for me, the work of writing a poem is private, and it's about wrestling with some of my own personal anxieties and questions and trying to use language and my imagination to learn something from what is on my mind. And hearing some of the responses to my work that you've had is consoling, because I feel like a lot of the ideas that I've landed upon in different poems have transmitted to readers. So you've really picked up on some of my deep anxieties about the distance between ourselves as people, as individuals, and what that might mean in a future, you know, if we persist in this manner. I like the song Dark Matters in my head is the last piece that I just responded to, and I like that moment. The answers to our problems just aren't that far. It's a dark book in so many ways, but I also feel like thinking about the closing up those spaces between us and thinking about being curious about each other's lives and humble about, you know, our marvelous capabilities and our knowledge, and recognizing, oh, there are threats involved in each of these marvelous kinds of progress that we land upon. I feel like those are kinds of solutions that make me feel hopeful. I made little notes as I was listening, and I don't know how useful they are. I love the sense of, in the first poem that we heard by Kelly, the really powerful sense of alliteration, and there was a rhythmic power that created a sense of authority in the poem. Ultimately, I think it's a dark and chastening poem, a poem that recognizes the danger in being different, but I also think it's a hopeful poem because, you know, so much of what is at threat or imperiled by a sense of conformity is vital and beautiful. So I love that the poem, I don't know where you're sitting. Hi. I love that your poem makes me think about that. What else? In Blair's essay, the sense of grief is what I heard you hearing in the poem, My God, It's Full of Stars, which at its heart is really a poem about wanting to elegize my father, wanting to connect my sense of loss to a kind of permanence. And so looking out and saying, oh, my dad had some interest in this thing that we can now see, made me feel comfort. And I guess there is a deep sense of consolation that I gather from looking at these images of millions of galaxies and thinking we can't be alone. There must be something more out there. And writing that book from a place of grief, which is kind of a lonely feeling, that sense of, you know, the multiplicities of worlds was consoling in a way. So it heartened me that you heard that in that poem. What else? Grace's presentation on, well, I guess I kind of talked a little bit about my sense of fear, but I think that you zeroed in on that so effectively. Even with that image that you had of the, you know, cell phones and computer screens and the ways that we project so much of our interest in these ultimately alienating devices, which is something that, you know, I do too, but I don't like that's part of where my attention goes. Madeleine, you emphasize the value of empathy and community and compassion in your essay, and that is something that I think my new work is obsessed with. Oddly enough, it's looking toward history, and it's looking at history as a place where we've made a lot of mistakes, and where I think if we're vigilant, we can gather a sense of courage to not make those kinds of mistakes. I was so moved by Jana's poem about the hate crimes and the voices that kind of borrowed the form that my poem, They May Love All That He Has Chosen, kind of employs with those letters and postcards. And I love the moment, I am a puny yet powerful piece of a race of warriors. I feel like that's something that my examination of history in my recent poems, in particular antebellum history and history of blacks in the Civil War, many of whom were fighting while enslaved, that's the feeling that I get from looking to that period. I'm a piece of something that's magnificent, that I feel lucky to belong to. I love that your poem put it into language so beautifully. I loved in Victoria's essay, your quote, "Humans of the future have essentially become the aliens that they were wondering about." I think every poem in a way is trying to do that. It's trying to turn what you feel most familiar with, which is yourself, into something that's strange and new and worthy of exploration. So I like this idea that, in my poem, you see that happening in literal terms. We have become an alien species, which makes us ripe for, like exploration in and of ourselves. Jamie, your poem, I found it, the associative movement. One of the things I value in poems, and one of the things I try and do and urge my students to do, is leap, to move quickly and associatively across large distances. I feel like that speed and accumulation that happens when poems do that is exhilarating, and it enlarges the reader too, because you've drawn all of these things into yourself. And I feel like your poem does that really powerfully. I loved the use of history in the poem. Even just mentioning a phrase like "those hidden in the trees" or "a child's first prick of cotton" brings me in touch with like really visceral elements of African American lived history in this country. And I love that the poem does it so quickly while also moving across a big historical terrain. Or in the Heavenly Palace poem, the paradise that was always waiting for us. The unprepared, us, the unprepared. I think that's really beautiful as well. I want to say, I'll be excited to share some new work tonight, and I'm looking forward, for those of you who will be here for the next hour, to talking about some of those poems and hearing what your questions might be. I know you've landed on a lot of really interesting insights. I wonder if there are questions, or even if my recollection of the process of writing the poems will be interesting. And I'm also excited to share some of the new work, particularly, Madeline ended on this sense of the values of empathy and community and compassion. And again, those are things that I'm really trying to learn. I'm trying to make these things which are not habitual. And for me, writing a poem is a way of kind of practicing that. Practicing new ways of looking at other people's lives, new ways of responding. I think one of the things technology does sometimes is it makes other people's needs or presence or voices a distraction, an inconvenience, because it pulls me away from me. And so I'm hoping that poems can be a way for me personally to resist doing that. Thank you. Thank you, Mitchell, I'm going to have dark matter in my head today in a really beautiful new way. So I just really want to say thank you. It really, it moves me to see you thinking so deeply about my work. Thanks.